This is Recovery Lifestyles with Carmel. Recovery Lifestyles is committed to raising awareness and ending stigmas surrounding addiction and mental health. These are stories from women around the world who have overcome and are now living inspiring and on-purpose lives. So I'm here today with Sharon Otness, founder and CEO of Design Your Beautiful Life. Sharon is a certified holistic health counselor living in Seattle, Washington. She is the health and wellness content director for Unlimited Women magazine. Sharon is also a licensed desire map facilitator, yoga instructor, including being a leader for the 12-step recovery. Sharon also has 16 years of sobriety under her belt. So welcome, Sharon. Did you want to share with us a little bit about who you are and your story?
Yeah, hi Carmel. Thank you for having me here. This is just wonderful and getting to know you better. And it's just, I've always known that there was something about us that needed to have a conversation. So this is wonderful.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just start kind of where the chapter of the book I started, because I think it's a kind of a profound moment that a lot of people can relate to. I was in my mid-40s and I remember barely. I remember, kind of waking up and hearing the door of my bedroom open and my daughter, who was a teenager at the time, looking in and looking at me with just such kind of confusion, disappointment, and my heart just sunk. And I looked back at her and I thought, what have I done? What am I doing to her? Because if you want to know the truth, I had a glass of wine next to my bed. I had a bottle of wine hidden in the closet. And I had gone out on a bit of a bender after being sober for a while and going to an art festival and just kind of losing it. And I just realized right then and there, when they talk about that surrender piece, I did. I just looked over at my husband at the time when he came back into the room and I said, I need help. I need help. And I just, I think that can be such a pivotal piece, because I wouldn't have at that point decided that I needed help for myself. I wouldn't have even decided I needed help for my marriage, because that was already at such a bad place for many different reasons. I won't go into all of that story here, but I would do it for my daughter because of the love that I had for her.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, how, you didn't have self-love for yourself.
No, not anymore. If I ever really did, I think maybe as a child I did in our just innocence.
Yeah, in our baby form.
Right. But I had used alcohol for so long just to kind of be in the norm of society, to get out of my introverted self, to be more of part of the program out there, that I didn't know really who I was anymore at all. I'd been relying on that other substances to maintain. So, self-medicating, all of that.
Yeah, I feel that's a common thread between a lot of us who, after several years of being in recovery, kind of come to find out, right, is that we did not feel like we fit in. We didn't know how to love ourselves. And it took something greater, and in your case, your daughter. And so what were the steps that you took next? Was it something that happened right away? Were you part of a 12-step program already? You had mentioned that you had been sober for a while.
Yeah, so this was going to be my second real go around. The first go around, I kind of went kicking and screaming, literally, into an outpatient, not detox, but an outpatient program. And at that point, it was like, no, I don't really have a problem. These people have problems. It's not, not me. I mean, a total denial about the whole thing. even knowing inside that, yeah, I had a problem, right? But I think there's such a stigma with women, right, and recovery and being an alcoholic, an addict, what have you, that, like if you're going to in recovery, there must be something really wrong with you. You're probably not a very good mother. You're not a good wife. Oh my gosh, there's that person over here. We feel like, we're going to get fingers pointed at us, right? I mean, at least I think that happens to most of us.
I think it does. I think it does.
I certainly felt it. And so I felt like, well, I'm not really one of those people. Well, any case, long story short is, yes, I went through that whole process. I can fake the good girl real easy.
Mm-hmm.
I always have been able to. And so I got through all of that, but then, insidiously things just started going back into my old patterns, doing some, more social drugs. Well, I can't even call it social drugs anymore at that point. Drinking more, doing all of the things that all of our friends were doing, right? So, how you say about who you surround yourself with. Well, through my husband and, having been long-term addict and alcoholic himself, everybody drank, everybody in our circles. It's just the way it was. So any kind of social interaction, included that. But anyway, so yes, I went down that path again in a really quick way, as you know how can happen. You think you're in control, and then all of a sudden you are not in control. So this was my second time around, and this time I did go to a detox, a 3-day program, and then again outpatient, but I stuck with it because this was really my, come to Jesus moment, if you will, that I knew I had to do something and do it fast and do it for, again, my daughter at that point, until I could, gradually start feeling value within myself again, getting my creativity back, starting to really look at things in a different way. Learning how to do more self-love practices.
I want to just ask you, I want to back up a little bit and ask you, because we kind of touched on that. There's a real mummy culture, mummy drinking culture. There's all these memes about it. There's all these, it's almost accepted. And so were you a stay-at-home mom at the time, or were you working?
At that time I was working. But I had always gone back and forth between, I was an interior designer for years. So I had always gone back and forth between my own practice and then working for someone. At that point I was working for someone, and that's how things kind of ended up getting, I had good insurance. It was like, go through recovery, that kind of thing. So I was able to do that. But yes, I am seeing more and more and more of how this mommy drinking culture is exploding almost, and it makes me very sad.
Well, they have mugs, like fancy pink sparkly mugs to hide your alcohol in, and this is okay. But we don't see the consequences of what's happening behind the scenes, right? We just see on social media and in the group conversations. But, I don't want to just talk about there, because as someone like yourself who was an interior designer at the time, I'm sure you were doing tons of meetings out in the workforce as well.
Yes.
And all of those meetings include having a drink. So how did you get past that? How did you not feel so, I want to say alienated, but when you first stopped drinking, how do you get past that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's just plain hard, and especially, like I said, with all of our mutual friends, that first year when I was still married, that was probably the hardest time because it was around always. And so, you just, that inner resolve has to be there. And again, for me, I will just go back to the thought of my daughter. And I what I did is almost like, you're a photographer. I do a lot of photography, so you'll get this. When I saw her, it was almost like a photograph clicked in my mind of what she looked like at that moment. And that stayed with me. So whenever I even got tempted, I could click and recall that in a heartbeat. So that's one of my tricks and tools I tell people. If you can go back and conjure up something like that in your mind, that can be almost like your talisman, or, you know, your, I don't know what else to call it here, but so that when those temptations come up, because they're going to constantly, right, that you can so quickly recall that and hold on to that and get through those moments.
Well, and we call, you know, in the 12-step program, we talk about our addiction is cunning and baffling.
Oh, yes.
And that double-edged sword. So having, you know, something that is probably quite painful to think of that, and probably remembering that image carries a lot of shame, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, it's something that will save you in that moment. Because I know even in my own experience, where people that maybe didn't know me and just handed me a drink, and it was so natural to be like, go to drink it and then think, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't drink. But then also not having to explain why you're not going to drink it.
Yeah. And I am one of those people too, that I'm kind of follow my dad this way. I'm a person of not so many words. And so it really was never hard for me to just say, no, thank you. Or no, thank you, I don't drink. I'll have this instead. So, you know, I guess I would also encourage people, like, saying you don't drink doesn't have to come with a big story, right? It can just be, no, thank you. I'll have water today. Or, you know, I'd like this instead.
And you know what, you just saying that, it just gave me this aha moment, right? That's called self-love.
Yeah.
Self-love.
Right.
Because we don't know how to say no.
Yeah.
Right? We're always, I know for myself and for a lot of women I speak to, we're always people pleasing. We're always trying to, you know, be enough, do enough, all these sort of things. And so by learning to say no, that's a powerful step in the right direction when you get into recovery.
It is. And, you know, and just knowing that, you know, no, thank you, or no, it's a complete sentence. You do not have to go further than that. So
I wish I knew that earlier.
Right. Well, that's why I'm saying it now. You know, really, it just, we don't have to give everybody a big story until when and if we choose to.
Yeah.
And when we choose to in the right moment, right? So, you know, and I think that that's another reason that I like to talk about this and speak out, is also because I think that the other part of our population that does, or maybe doesn't think they have a problem with alcohol, like, please don't, you know, assume or make somebody feel bad because they don't want alcohol. Like, why does that matter to you? Right? It shouldn't matter to you. It's just a drink. It's a beverage.
Yeah. But I think that most of us, I mean, now that I'm on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
with 14 years of recovery, and I know now why they do that, right? Because it's a reflection of themselves.
Well, yes.
But we don't know that in early recovery.
Yeah.
We're just little emotional babies back then, and we don't know that.
Right.
And so I know that you're passionate about self-care, self-love. What tips, or I mean, even strategies, what would you tell somebody? How could they start? Where could they start?
I think just, you know, start small. Start with something. Maybe try something that you haven't tried before. You know, if you haven't tried a yoga class, maybe go to a yoga class, not because of the exercise part so much, although it is good exercise and that's important, but go just to enjoy the experience of it and see how that works for you. Or certainly my foundational is making sure that you get really nutritious food, because most of us that have been drinking alcohol for some time are probably, you know, deficient in quite a few nutrients, probably racing for sugar. I know that I did, certainly. So, you know, eating really good nutrient dense food, whole food, super important. Try something new like essential oils. That's a big thing for me, but aromatherapy, just to do something beautiful. You don't even worry so much about which one it is and how it, just do something lovely. Put it in a diffuser, just put it in your hands, breathe in, love yourself with it. Maybe get a couple of crystals that speak to you. And again, don't worry about which ones they are. If you just see a crystal that's beautiful and you love it, buy it for yourself. Get it for yourself and put it in a spot that, you can look at it and just really enjoy it. So there's just so many small things you can do.
So how does somebody who has been in addiction and has been told for years and years that they're selfish, how do they get past that piece of maybe they'd like to do something like that for themselves, or even just take a moment and sit on their couch for half an hour and do nothing? How do they get to the other side of that's not selfish, that's self-love?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. And that transcends from women just in general, like addictive or not, that, that's not okay. We need to be busy all the time and doing things and productive and taking, always. So I can just say to that, and, it's just going to take some, using the muscle to make it probably sink into the head. But just think about this. If you work yourself to the point where you get sick, or you're, so stressed that your body is not performing well anymore, or you're an emotional wreck, whose is that doing any service for? Certainly nobody. So really, it is imperative. It's not just a maybe you should try. This is imperative, is to take care of yourself and sit and you don't even have to call it meditation. Just like you said, sit on the sofa for a minute. Take a few breaths. Just catch your breath. Yeah. And make sure, with you and a little one, like, just catch your breath for a minute. It's okay. But just be able to sit or do something a little enjoyable, or, nothing at all. It's really imperative to your health. That's just a wellness piece. It doesn't matter if you're, in addiction or not. You need to do that for yourself. And it is not selfish. It is self-loving.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think as a society, we're addicted to being busy, right?
Oh, for God's sakes. And, and all of our social media and our little technology stuff just encourages that even tenfold. So yeah, we are on a precipice that I think we need to really be careful with, because I even know for myself, I'll say this, I never thought I was terribly anxious, but I'm finding myself, I have to really be careful right now, because I am finding myself more stressed, more anxious. And so I'm having to go back to my tools very carefully for myself. It doesn't matter if I have 16 years in recovery or not, right? We all know you can go down in a moment. So I'm having to really be careful of this myself. And I'm glad that I now know that this is not selfish, that I know that this is imperative for myself, for, my being able to help my family in a better way, which I cannot do otherwise.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because it doesn't matter if you have 1-2 days sober, or like you 16 days sober. We are still every single day need to be practicing what we were taught in the beginning to stay sober, because without that practice, the foundation may be laid, but wow, it can go that fast.
It can. Yeah. And yes, I think that the length helps, because you probably just have a bigger, broader support in place.
Yeah.
But, cracks happen, right?
They do. And it is amazing how many people at, 10, 11, 12 years sober all of a sudden think, oh, I can drink normal. It's been this long already. I can just have one. Mm-hmm. That one, it may not take, it may not just snap right away and your entire life falls apart, but it's this progression. And all of a sudden it's like you're twirling, and it's, your whole life has fallen apart so fast. And you didn't even notice, because you took that one drink. And it's even just the behaviors, right? We have all these behaviors that we needed to change, our mindset we needed to change. And if you don't keep up with it, it's amazing how our brain works, right? It's like,
oh my goodness,
ooh, I liked that, so I'm going to revert.
We tell ourselves, yep. And I think that's, that is one of the things that was good about my first recovery not working so well. I didn't, I was resisting it as much as I could, first of all. And then, it's spinning out of control all of a sudden very quickly. Mm-hmm. That made me really appreciate how fast that can happen.
Yeah. And the pain gets worse every time.
Oh,
it almost
God,
compounds. I know for myself in the beginning, I didn't get sober the first time either. It took me several times of relapse, but every relapse was more painful, was, the destruction somehow was worse. And I'm not interested in going back to that. But I can trick myself easily into thinking that it is better. Like I might not be having as much fun, or right. Like it's amazing how sometimes you can all of a sudden think that, geez, my life's kind of boring.
Right. Oh yeah. And that's an interesting thing you say that, because that's one of the things that I remember when I did get out of my marriage. And, I remember all of a sudden there was no drama. There was no drama anymore. And I remember having that thought, like, what is this all there is? Like, and I sat there with that for a minute and thought, oh my God, was I so much wrapped into that was normal? Yes. That craziness was normal.
The adrenaline, right?
Yes.
So then we're chasing the adrenaline, that high. And then if you're not careful and you're not aware, you go and start creating it in your life.
Yes.
In different, I'm sure you've done it as well. I mean, I've done it in different patterns over the years.
Sure. Yeah. Luckily nothing as destructive as, but still, you're right. And we were talking about a little bit before this, but there's still little things that crop up and you look at and you go, oh God, okay, another lesson, right? But it's just interesting how, you're never not an addict.
So I want to talk a little bit about a book you were writing. You have a chapter, the first chapter. Maybe it's not the first chapter, but it's a chapter, because we all know
it's a chapter. Yeah, it's a chapter that's going to become a book.
Yes.
And
it's called To Recover with Love. Would you like to share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would love to. So it's really my way of looking at recovery through a little different lens. I think that you just say the word recovery or detox and it feels heavy and, again, that sort of finger pointing and there's just a negative connotation around it. From the outside world, but also from the alcoholic or addict themselves, right? Like, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to go there. But my thought is, like, it may not be the process that gets you into recovery, but I want to capture people that maybe are in recovery in those beginning stages and start looking at it with love. Because to me, if you are suffering from addiction, the biggest thing you can give yourself in a loving way, maybe the first thing you're giving yourself, even though you're not looking at it like this, is to surrender and go into recovery, right? Because you've taken a huge step for yourself. And then we can just keep working from there, keep working on, adding in just other loving things that you can do for yourself until you start really getting that self-worth back, the love for yourself back that more than likely has been destroyed.
Yeah. So I'm going to have that link available for everybody just under the video. And so they can click on that and go and read your first chapter and maybe possibly get on a list so that they know when the book is going to come out.
That'd be wonderful.
We all know, both of us being writers, that these things take time. So
yes. But it's here. It's already, partially on paper. So it's going to come out. Yeah. Yeah,
So
and it's a mission of mine. It really is a mission. It's more just to help other people in recovery, because I know how much love we have in here to give out into the world. You know, we are very talented. We are very smart people. We're very loving people. So I want to help people get that back.
Mm. So do you have anything else that you'd like to share? Is there anything burning desire, as we say in the 12-step rooms?
Oh my gosh. I think we've really covered on most of these things. My burning desire really is to just keep this conversation going, you know, and I think that especially as women, our voices have not been heard as much in this realm. And I think the more that we speak out and just help other women understand that, you know, you're not a bad wife, you're not a bad person, you're not a bad mother, you know, just need to redirect and get back on track and loving yourself more, so that then everything else just starts coming back into play.
Yeah. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for joining me today, having this conversation, because I know and I trust in my heart that the women who need to hear this message and need to hear your message will hear it and be touched by it.
Thank you, Carmel. Thank you very much.